In healing spaces, we often talk about creating that culture where you're okay to cry. I just talked about it last week and talk about the release. But what about the people that can't cry? What about the people that come to yoga class and see everyone else maybe able to and is a bit jarred by that? And it just feels like glass. I want you to hear you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. And there's a science behind what is happening. And we're going to talk about that today with Heartmind with Holli. I am so excited to have you for another episode. I have my tea and I'm here to join you in a conversation to help support a kinder, softer mental state that is grounded in the heart. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and you'll get more beautiful episodes like this to support that process for yourself. Start with that word protecting, and this is what the body is doing through numbness. And I really think of numbness as an emotion. So when I talk about it for myself and when I talk about it with clients, it's one of the various emotions that we can feel, the lack of emotion. And a numbness has a certain feeling or sense in our body. And it's not a sign that you're damaged, that the trauma has damaged you. It's not a sign of actually your emotional intelligence. In fact, it's the exact opposite, that you do have a really intelligent system that is working, okay? And one of the worst things that we can do is make ourselves feel worse when we're feeling that emotion of numbness. Today we're going to look at it through the lens of science, the nervous system, and how the West looks at that. We're going to look at it a little bit through Ayurveda, and then, of course, yoga as well. So stay with me. Okay, I'm going to talk about the nervous system, and a lot of people know this information. This is pretty strong groundwork that we've been doing in the yoga world for a very long time about learning about our nervous system, the difference between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. And I talked last episode about how crying is our way of switching into the parasympathetic nervous system, where we're able to rest and our digestive system is able to digest, and we're not having to be as outward with our energy, hyper vigilant about what to do and where to be and how to react. Now, when we are feeling numb, we probably don't understand it or exactly feel it, but we're typically in a chronic sympathetic nervous system place. And this happens a lot with trauma, but it can happen with even micro traumas. Like, say that you've been in a very stressful job for decades. That's going to have an effect of just chronically being switched on. And so your nervous system is going to be wired to be more switched on and less in that parasympathetic region, where it's like the doorway can be the tears, but it also requires a little bit that switch of the nervous system to go in that direction to have the release. So this is a fight and flight response with trauma, or that could be, again, micro traumas, trying to get away or trying to battle and create that strong boundary. The other response is freeze the emotions, freeze, and find a way to have to just get through this, right? And so the body freezes into a chronic sympathetic nervous system drive, being aware, shutting down a lot of those processes. So what's happening though in the heart when we're in there, in that sympathetic nervous system, is it's beating really fast because it's trying to keep up and keep diligent and be ready when we can run or be ready for what needs to happen next, getting our limbs ready to react. And so the heart is in overload, really, really active, in yoga terms, rajastic, really pumping and going hard, which requires a lot from the lungs too. If we look at it from a yoga perspective, the lungs start to really breathe to help pump the heart, okay? One of the things that gets switched off too and then tightened is that vagus nerve. So once we're starting to relax, the vagus nerve starts to connect a little bit more of those organs of deep rest. And again, being able to digest not just food, although that's true, but our mental experiences, digesting through emotion, our mental experiences. If we're not able to digest it and fully take it in and understand it, process it, And then it remains in that frozen state. And we're protecting ourselves. Think of your vagus nerve like a telephone wire that is connecting and helping to communicate all those major organs, lungs, heart, brain. When it goes offline so that we can act and respond very diligently, it is kind of suppressed, it turns off. But when, and so do the tears. But when it starts to soften, then the tears can come and these parts of ourselves start to communicate. So in a way, crying then becomes a form of being able to communicate and bring these in more. But if we can't, it's because our body is saying there's other things that you need to attend to right now. And it might be working on faulty information, or it's probably working from a past pattern. And one of the big parts of my healing has been, yes, there was a part of me that felt my life was in danger. On the surface, and with other people looking, it probably didn't seem that way, but it felt that way, that there was a part of me that believed I was going to die. And if that's true, then we're out of kind of the depths of relaxation within our body, and our organs are preparing to survive and helping us survive. So your nervous system has been working overtime for decades to keep you alive. And it's intelligently doing that, finding little pockets maybe where you can find the parasympathetic response in a yoga class, or with a distraction like television. It's not complete relaxation and that real depth of relaxation, but it's finding those pockets where it can. But it's not enough to maybe bring on that deep release of tears. Right, let's go into Ayurveda, and I find that it can lead us in other ways of thinking of this than Western science, because it's using the elements and the amazing intelligence of the elements. And we're going to talk about Vata first. So Vata is the energy and the elements that move us, move our neurological system, our neurons, and our prana, our life force that we talk about, or chi. And we all have Vata, and some of us have more Vata, more space and air, which will move these neurons quicker. So you might be more prone to tremors, for example. You might be more prone to neurological kind of quickness. It is also what is kind of giving us the ability to process through the neurological system emotions. So there's something called pranavata, which is like the most refined expression of energy, and it governs the mind, it governs our thoughts, and it's what allows us to process, digest, move emotions. When we experience chronic trauma, and especially early on, this will start to disturb our pranavata, whether you have a lot of vata or not. For example, it might be really hard to close the eyes. You might have a lot of shaking in the eyes when you first come to Shavasana. That's one example. Or you just can't stay still in Shavasana. That's that kind of just needing to move, not wanting or can't really stay still. And it goes down into the nervous system, and the neurology and the neurons really just can't stay still. We can call this disturbance of pranavata vishada, and this translates loosely as grief. Grief sits on the hearts and the lungs in the anahata chakra. And this grief is a little bit more than just what we think of as grief, as just sadness. It's actually saying that the vishada is a closing off of the heart mind, a contraction and a quietness that closes off the heart and the mind to the heart. And this happens in trauma, and when we do that, we're not able to feel. It's said that the birthplace of all emotions is the heart, is right here. And so if we close that off, it's just not allowing those to be births, those emotions. Western science and more, and Ayurveda agree. The way back to the heart mind is not going to be through thinking. The thoughts are going to run over us, but through the body, through the physical body, and starting to ground. So rhythmic movement, that's why yoga can be so beneficial with trauma. And I'm not saying it's the only thing, and I'm so happy we have Western medicine, but it is beneficial. It's helped so many people start to regulate their nervous system and start to come back to the heart. come back to their center. The most useful Ayurvedic tools is both a physical practice, but it has kind of a metaphysical dimension to it as touch and abhyanga, it's called. So massaging yourself, massaging that heart space with an oil. Sometimes you can get really specific with what kind of oil you might use based on your elemental makeup. The more you feel that warmth towards yourself, the more safe you start to feel. The more safe you feel, then again, we're moving towards the relaxation of the vagus nerve, the relaxation of the pericardium, holding the heart, and then spontaneously the emotions that need to come will come. So, with yoga, yes, there's real practices and then there's theory too. With our yoga and trying to bring just any emotional response back other than the numbness. Not that the numbness is wrong, it's actually really beautiful. It is an emotion, but maybe we want to shift it to a parasympathetic and a response to receive our other emotions. So, there's a few physical practices and the theories. So we talked about the emotions being birthed from the heart. Really close to the heart is the throat. I've talked about the throat quite a bit in this channel and with expression. So think of vibration as a way to kind of break down some of the iceberg or break down some of the physical stuckness that you might feel with the emotion, the armor around the heart. So I just even did this last night with the Heartmind group is the Brahmari. And you can do this by taking even just earbuds into your ear and not including the arms, or you can include the mudra with it. But by humming, you're starting to, with vibration, that vibration of your voice, the force of your own voice, and taking it inward, starting to break down a little bit of that frozenness. It's also like a cat purse, soothing for our nervous system, the vagus nerve. And so then it starts to warm as well. It's warming the blood and starting to break down little cracks in that physical stuckness, emotional stuckness that you might have in this region and in these chakras, the centers, the psychic and physical centers here. And this begins to let the prana, vata flow. It starts to help the information, the emotions flow. So going into the Brahmari, maybe with the mudra, maybe just without the mudra, maybe with closing the ears, and then that will become even more conscious or vibrating within the body. You'll be more conscious of it. And then something to open the heart. And we talk about that a lot in yoga, but really stretching the chest muscles, stretching the, armors again, the pericardium, going out, maybe stretching some of these meridians in the arms that are also in the lungs. So stretching the heart chakra center, stretching the front of it so that whatever needs to be coming up can come up. So you would do the Brahmari, then go into the chest opening, and that could be fish pose or lying on a bolster opening in the front body. And the theory behind this again is to start to warm and melt some of the iceberg freeze of the trauma, start to break up the physical stuckness, the emotional stuckness, which is more tamastic, it's heavy, it's held, it's more dense. So you're trying to break that up, allow a flow, and then feel into the stretch and flexibility, mobility of your chest space. There's a few more things we could do. Within that stretch, maybe you touch into some vulnerable points. So there's a couple of marma points here on our chest that you could just touch into. Right under the collarbones where they meet, about 2 fingers, whatever the distance is for your 2 fingers in your body. 2 fingers down, you even see the impression of those 2 fingers. So I'm going to go right underneath that. And then I have a little zing or zip right in the sternum. I'll stick with that one today. One is enough, but that marma point, once you do the shaking and warm it up, you're receiving and pressing into that marma point. You could tap into that marma point. My little jewelry is right in that marma point. You could just do a little tapping. That's really popular these days on the point. And it's that same idea. We're just starting to, through vibration, touch vibration, break that up. And then we're not trying to push. This is a big, sentiment and quality we want with when we're working with trauma in general, there's always an invitation. So the invitation is for our heart to show us what needs to be felt, and what can keep us stuck in not feeling is that we're wrong if it's a certain emotion, or we're wrong if there's no emotion. There's no wrong here. It's just pure sense. Sense what you sense. Note what you note with the sensations, or if emotion comes forth, it comes forth. After you're able to stay in Shavasana, so you don't want to do this next practice unless you're able to kind of come into Shavasana after a physical practice and find a little rest. But Yoga Nidra is one of the steps for real deep rejuvenation and starting to soften into our experience. And it helps us get into that parasympathetic nervous system, which will show us the next layers that need to be released, which could be tears, which could be releasing the stress that you've been holding on to survive. But Yoga Nidra is really the next step after you're able to be in a lying position in somewhat stillness and softness with some ease for at least, I would say, 10 minutes. Then we move to Yoga Nidra. I love Yoga Nidra. I've created my own method of Yoga Nidra. This is where we're going to come into a really slow brainwave where we're meeting sleep and we're trying to stay conscious right on that edge where we're meeting that sleepy state, but we're staying awake. And we do a certain process to track that through the body. We do that with trying to come into the mind with detachment and certain tools with Yoga Nidra. With my Yoga Nidra, we go in a certain pathway, energy pathway through the right side, left side, and up the chakra system. For this reason, for these centers to start to feel really deeply restful and connect to the state of being in your parasympathetic nervous system. I just threw at you a lot of tools. Just choose one or maybe two back to back that you would want to do in the morning or evening. Choose one for a week. I dare you, and see how that supports you starting to feel into your emotions more. So it might be that self-massage in the morning. It could be just that. It might be that self-massage and then the humming. It could be at night the humming and then the fish. It could be at the night doing, the humming fish, and then there's a Yoga Nidra recording that you want to follow. If you're wanting a Yoga Nidra and you're ready for it, like I said, you're able to stay in Shavasana after a class, after a physical class. I have a free Yoga Nidra right now for you. All you have to do is tap on that link in the description or in the comments, and you'll see Unlock Your Heartmind Yoga Nidra. So that could support you as well. I want to close with something really important. If you have been emotionally numb for a while, months, years, a decade or more, it's not going to be a straight line. So allow yourself time to practice and let it come the way it will come. It might be not during the yoga practice, but you are prepared. You're not as afraid when it does come because you've been inviting it. The tears that come after a drought can be very overwhelming. So I'm going to invite you to know that that first rush or surge, like a surge in the ocean, can feel quite overwhelming, but there's going to be waves, and your body will let you experience the amount that is needed to be experienced. So when you feel those, I'm going to invite you to take a moment, hold, breathe, and repeat to yourself that your body is incredibly intelligent and it's showing you what is the next layer to receive. Your nervous system and your body are starting to rebuild the trust of feeling. And so give it that time and enforce the declaration of that communication and that your nervous system is incredibly intelligent. You can do it. And it's this trust that starts to allow the tears to come. And we've talked about in the last episode how the tears can help support the healing. If this has supported you or moved you in any way, I really invite you to subscribe and share it with someone else that might really need to hear this message today. And know that they are supported in their body in a very specific way. And the more and more we hear it, the more and more we start to trust that support. So please share if you know someone that needs it. Now, take care. Enjoy your prana. Enjoy your yoga. Travel well. Namaste.